All right, good to see you all. I want to kick our time off today with a question. Who here believes that if you could raise your level of influence, if you could raise your ability to be able to stand out as a trusted authority in the marketplace, that it would make a significant difference to your results? Raise your hands for me. Now that video always raises a really interesting question for me, and that is this. Given all of that noise, given all of that complexity, given all of that uncertainty, what does it take to stand apart as an influencer, as a trusted authority in your space? And are there some consistent behaviours and strategies that we can apply to rapidly increase our own levels of influence? Now, my world and the world that I've spent the last 20 years of my career in is the world of influence. Specifically, what it is, where it lives, how it works, and how it can be harnessed to propel ideas, organisations, and individuals into the centre of attention. Essentially, just trying to answer this one question. What makes an influencer today? Now, I'm going to get into some of the answers with you today. I'm going to break it down for you. We're going to look at some strategies, some ideas that you can take back to the office, back to the field. But before I do, I want to start out with a quiz. Who here is a master at trivia? Raise your hands. Anyone here a trivia master? Anyone here captain of your trivia team? No one. Awesome. I am going to win. Hands down. This is going to be great. Okay. Number one. Who's this? Who can name this person for me? Oh, come on. It's the first one. No? Okay. How about this person? Right. Great. Now for the next. Anyone name this person? No? How about this person? Jamie. Okay. Next. Any ideas? Apart from a mafia don? No? Please see. Exactly. How about this person? No? Who's this? Steve Jobs. Exactly. Well, what happened? I think it's probably my first question. What does that tell me? What does that tell me? I'm going to tell you the answers now. The first person that you saw, that none of us, I think, would recognise if we walked past on the street, her name is Susan Wojcicki. And Susan Wojcicki is the CEO of YouTube up until just this year, which makes her the most powerful woman in the media today. The second person you didn't recognise, his name is Michael Brass. Now, Michael Brass, #1 chef in the world, as voted by his peers. And yet, for most of us, we couldn't pick him from a lineup, right? The third person you didn't recognise, he is responsible for the majority of my handbag fantasies, of which I have many. He is Bernard Arnault, the richest man on the planet, somewhere in the realms of $260 billion. Richard Branson, he's like a poverty billionaire. Down here somewhere like $3 billion, and he's just, he's just living on cornflakes. This guy, this person that you should recognise, that's Tim Berners-Lee. He invented the internet. He's the reason that all of us are here today. He's the reason we even knew there was an event happening today. And yet for most of us, we don't know who he is. And so why? This question just fascinates me. Why? Why is that? What does that tell us? Now, what it tells me a lot is what influence isn't. What influence isn't. Influence isn't years in the game. It's not how long you've been doing this. It's not tenure. Influence also isn't how much money you have. The size of your marketing budget, how many dollars you've got in the bank. And finally, and probably most importantly to me, influence is not force, it is not aggression, and it is not extrovertism. So if it's none of those things, what is it? What about all those people that you recognized? What do they have in common? That's an actual question, by the way, so I'm coming down. It's a full contact sport. What do they have in common? Shout it out for me. Oh, what? Start over here.
They're public.
They're public. Yeah, they have public profiles. They've stepped out from behind the brand, stepped out from outer shadows, and they've got a public profile. What else? They've got big personalities. What's interesting about that is we feel like they have big personalities. Actually, it's just that they've shared something of themselves. And that makes them feel kind of technical, kind of three-dimensional to us. One more.
Great marketing.
What is that? Great marketing. Yes. They have a clear strategy for standing out, don't they? And they put resources and consistency behind that. 100%. 100%. All of those things. But I want to take everything that you've just said and I just want to elevate it a little. Just take it to the next level. I want to put it to you that every single person that you recognize has one thing in common. They have taken advantage of what I would call a new age of influence. And in this new age of influence, you can now connect, engage, mobilize en masse in terrifyingly short periods of time. You can go from a nobody to a somebody, mobilize millions of people in under 24 hours and 280 characters or less. Now you had better be good when you get there. You had better have an idea worth buying into or a product worth buying. But what I want you to understand is that trajectory, that speed, that has never existed before, not in the history of mankind. And so what's changed? What's fueling that speed? What's fueling that impact? Technology. Pardon? The amount of users, the amount of people that we have access to now. And what gives us that? The digital world. It provides access to all these people. Digital has changed the game of influence completely. 10 years ago, very few people had a voice. Very few people had a platform. If you wanted to pull together a community of the like-minded, like-hearted, and similar beliefs and values, it would take a really long time, right? You'd have to go door to door to do that. Today, you can reach millions of people all over the world in an instant. Except the game of influence has completely changed. Now, I want you to take that and just combine it for a second. Combine it with this number. 96%. 96% of everything that you consume online, and 93% of all of your decisions, by the way, now, are influenced by what you consume online. 96% of it is what we would call unbranded. Unbranded. And that's just a really fancy way of saying that it comes from a human being and not a brand. 96% of everything that you consume comes from a human being and not a brand. Now that is huge. That is huge. All the digital world has done is enable us to follow our most basic human instinct. And that is that people follow people. We don't follow brands. Now, brands are still pivotally important, but what's shifted is the order. In an old age of influence, attention belonged to the brand. And we would look behind the brand to see the compelling people. Now, in a new age of influence, attention belongs to the people. And we look behind the people to find the compelling brand. And that is why I wholeheartedly believe that we are entering into one of the most exciting chapters that direct selling has ever seen. And if you are looking for untapped potential over the next 12 to 18 months, I believe that it is this. We need to build the influencers. Build the trusted authorities in our marketplace. So how do we do that? Takes us back to that first question, right? What makes an influencer? Now, over the years, I developed a system for doing this, and we called it the Influencer Code. I'm going to share some of that system with you today, and my hope is that you're going to spend some time, discuss it with each other, take some ideas, and take it back into the office, and get it out there into the field. That's my hope for today. So the first thing, the first part of the Influencer Code is this one word: clarity. You cannot own a space in the mind of your target market unless you are crystal clear what space it is that you want to own. You cannot own a space in the mind of your target market unless you are crystal clear about what space it is that you want to own. Now, back when I first started out 20 years ago, you could own a massive space. You could own a massive space. We call it a macro space. You could be the guru of leadership, you could be the guru of finance, the guru of gardening, the guru of cooking. Very few voices on very few platforms, very few people to compete with, right? Now the future belongs to the micro influencers. The micro influencers. Those who are hyper specialized. Those where we know exactly what you do and exactly who you do it for. Now, here's another question. Who has their phone nearby? That was a trick question. You all have your phone nearby. Can you grab your phone for me for a second? Grab your phones. Awesome. Now I want you to turn to the person next to you, and I want you to give them the creepiest smile that you can imagine. Oh, come on. I saw creepiest smiles at lunch. Yeah, that's pretty terrible. Okay, hang on. Then what I want you to do is, if you don't know their name already, I want you to tell each other your names, and then I want you to Google them. Google them. You see a bunch of you are like, I'm going to change my name. Hold on, we're not finished. Alright, I want you to Google them, and then I want you to tell the person next to you what space it is that you think that they own. Google the person next to you, tell them what space it is you think that they own. Let me just pop up some music. I'm going to bring you back. Okay, who here was just thrilled with what their partner found? Who here was just like, oh, you owned it. You owned the space. Well done. There's one over here. Anybody else nailed it? No, okay. Who here was just MIA from the internet completely? Just doesn't exist. Over there, I'm so sorry. And who here was just really surprised to find out that they were actually a pole dancer living in Texas? You laugh. How's that for you? So why did I get you to do that? Why did I ask you to do that? Because that's what we do, right? That's what we do. It's a very technical term for it. We call it Google stalking. And we stalk before we go for a job. We stalk before we buy from somebody. We stalk before we go on a date. We're constantly Google stalking. Now, according to Harvard University, over 50% of all the decisions that are made about you, about whether to do business with you, are made before anybody even gets in contact, just by what they found out in moments like those. I'll say that again. 50% of all the opportunities that are coming your way or coming to the way of your field, 50% of them have made up their mind whether to do business or not with you before they even get in contact. Now that's massive. Imagine if you could just up that conversion rate by 10%. You wouldn't need any more opportunities. That is huge. Again, just by what people find in moments like those. We need to own those moments. Now, macro influencers, macro authorities, those who try and own too large a space, rarely get traction. Micro influencers, on the other hand, get 4 times more engagement, 4 times more traction, just by owning a hyper specialized space. When we know exactly what you do and exactly who you do it for. So how do we figure this out? How do we find, it's all very well and good, but how do we find our micro influence niche? How do we figure out what space we want to own? Well, the best way I have figured out how to do this over 20 years is this. I call it the influence intersection. Influence intersection, and it basically looks like this. You take one world where you have mastery, experience, and insights, and you overlay it with another world where you have mastery, experience, and insights. And that space in the middle, we call that the impact zone. That is a space that only you can own. That's the space where you're going to stand out. Now I'll give you some examples to help bring this to life. We saw Jamie Oliver earlier, right? Jamie Oliver, when he first started out, I don't know about you, I remember when he first started. Now, back then he was a great chef. He worked in a 5-star restaurant. But there was a lot of chefs out there that were very French, that were very serious, that were very big hats on. Now he knew he was never going to stand out by being a 5-star chef. It was too much noise. So what he did is he took that world, a world where he had mastery, experience, and insights, and he combined it with another world, where he had mastery, experience, and insights. And that was the world of the family. The world of feeding a family on a budget, in a healthy way, easily. That was another world that he understood, and by combining the two, he found an impact zone that only he could own. Give you another example. We saw Steve Jobs earlier. And when Steve Jobs and Wozniak first started out, they were amazing engineers. Wozniak, incredible engineer. But they knew that they were going to go up against IBM, they were going to go up against Microsoft. It wasn't enough to be amazing engineers. So what they did is they took that world, the world of engineering, and they combined it with another world. And that was the world of the maverick, the innovator, the creative. And that space in the middle, that was a space that only they could own. That is where Apple dominated. So what's your impact zone? What's your micro-authority that only you can own? What two worlds can you combine? Could it be health and beauty and ethical awareness? Could it be household and environment? Could it be anti-aging and wellness and vitamins? What two worlds can you combine? Now here's the key. Usually the first world is what you do. And the second world is exactly who you do it for. So again, I'm going to put up some music here. When you talk to the person next to you, what is your impact zone? What is a space that only you can own? I'm going to give you a minute. I don't want it to be perfect. I just want you to start a conversation. What is your unique impact? All right. All right. I know that wasn't anywhere near long enough. I wish I could have been a fly on the wall in some of these conversations. I want you to take this tool back. I want you to share it with your field. I have shared this tool to thousands of direct sales and direct selling companies all over the world. And it is one of the most useful tools when it comes to figuring out exactly what niche you want to own, exactly what space you want to own as a micro-influencer. Now I want to share one of my favourites at the moment with you. Does anyone know who this is? Interesting.
Oh, yeah.
Whoop!
Oh, sorry. Oh, she's Australian.
She is indeed.
Kayla.
Ooh, Kayla.
Did I say that out loud?
You did. Wait, we're all going to ask her Kayla. I'll put you on music. Kayla Itznes. That's the one. So Kayla Itznes. So 10 years ago, Kayla Itznes was a personal trainer in a little town down the south coast of Australia, just below a city called Adelaide, middle of nowhere. And she wanted to be a personal trainer, and she was training people in her backyard. And she was struggling. She just wasn't getting enough clients. She was trying to get more business. She was getting nowhere. There was a lot of personal trainers. It was a very small town. And she was just on the verge of giving up, stopping, doing something else. And then she had this epiphany. And she thought, what if I just chose one type of person to talk to? What if I got really specific with who I was talking to? And what if I just answered their questions? And what if I spoke to their challenges? And what if I just helped them with everything that I was putting out there into the world, rather than trying to talk to everybody? And so that's what she did. Now, she did that for about 6 months, and suddenly, Booktown. She was sharing on Instagram, she was sharing on Facebook, success stories, before and afters, answering questions, putting out content, contributing, helping. Booktown. Now, she could have stopped there, but what had started to happen is that she was starting to get a global following. People were starting to get in touch with her and going, look, I don't live in Australia. And most people who live in Australia live nowhere near Adelaide. So, but can you help me? Can you please help me? And she said, okay, well, what I'll do is, what's the number one question that I get asked? She said, well, I know, it's how do I get a bikini body? She's like, okay. So I'll just put out an ebook. So she wrote an ebook. It had some exercises in it. It had some meal plans in it. She popped it up on her website. It was, I think, £20. And she sent everybody a message and just said, here you go. For everybody I can't help, here's an ebook with the exact system that I use. 6 months later, that ebook had been downloaded 1 million times. Do the math on that. 2 years after that, she had over 5 million followers. 1 year after that, Forbes magazine voted her the #1 health and fitness influencer on the planet. 2 years after that, 7 years. This is a 7-year journey from her backyard in Adelaide to, in 2021, she sold her company Sweat for $400 million. Now that is the power of getting clear. That is the power of figuring out your impact zone and then doubling down on it. Showing up with everything that you've got to answer their questions, help them in their journey. When you speak exactly to them, that is the power of doing that. So, what is your impact zone? And how can you show up consistently to help exactly that kind of person? Next on our list is this word, contribution. Contribution. Now I want you to write this down for me. I need to write this down. The future belongs to those who out-contribute and not those who outspend. Future belongs to those who out-contribute and not those who outspend. Now why is that? I mean, firstly, the most powerful platforms on the planet right now are free, right? Like, at the most base level. The future belongs to those, the future doesn't belong to those who outspend, who outshout, and who out-interrupt. And yet that's the basic playbook of marketing, right? It has been for decades. I went to university, I studied marketing, 4 years of my life I spent. And I could summarize those 4 years in 3 sentences for you today. I'll save you the trouble and the expense. So, number 1, outspend. Spend more money than anybody else in the marketplace. On ads, marketing, etc., etc. Number 2, outshout. Bigger and louder, take up more space than anybody else in the marketplace. And number 3, out-interrupt. Interrupt more people in more places, more times than anybody else. Now, quick question for you. Who here, just out of curiosity, who here loves being interrupted? Who here just loves it? It's like sat at home on a Friday night with a glass of wine, just waiting for a telemarketer to call. No? Spam? No? Pop-ups? No? No? We hate it! Right? We absolutely hate it. Story for you. My mum, true story, my mum, she's 75 years old. And to give you some context, she doesn't even have an iPhone or an email account. And so it was last year, I called her just to check on her, just to see how she was doing. And she picked up the phone and she was like, hiya. Now, for anyone that's northern in this room, I just really want to apologise in advance before I start this story. Because my northern accent is terrible. So, she's like, hiya. And I said, hey, how are you doing? Just calling, checking in here, how you going? And she was like, oh, I'm great. She's like, I'm great. She's like, I've just figured something out. I said, what have you figured out? She said, what I figured out is, what I do is, when EastEnders is coming on, what I do is I press record, and then I press pause, and then I go on and make a cup of tea, and I biscuit, and then I come back, and then I press play, and then I fast forward all the ads. It's brilliant. Now, if my mum, my 75-year-old mum, has figured out how to stop people from outspending, outshouting, out-interrupting, what do you think the future of those strategies is? It's not good, right? It's not good. So what do we do instead? If we're not going to outspend, outshout, and interrupt, what do we do instead? What we do is we out-contribute. We contribute more frequently to our impact zone than anybody else, and we do that by becoming this, the translator. The primary translator of your space. Now, what is a translator? A translator is somebody who goes out to the fringes, out to the edges, to places where I neither have the time, nor the bandwidth, nor the experience to go, and they bring back information to me using my language in bite-sized chunks. That is what a translator is. Now, we have no shortage of information right now. Anyone feel like they're short on some information? Nope. We have tons of information coming out of our ears. I promise you, your target market has more information on what you do, science, data, facts, brochures, than they could ever possibly consume. Who we follow now, who we buy from now, they aren't the people with the most information. They are the translators of that information. They are the people who bring it back to us and translate it using our language in bite-sized chunks. Now, I want you to do, I'm going to raise the music again. I just want you to turn to the person next to you. I want you to talk about who are the translators of your world? Who do you follow? You read everything that they write. You watch everything that they put out there. They might translate golf for you. They might translate the economy. They might translate business. They might translate fashion. Who are the current translators of your world and what do they translate for you? A couple of minutes, quick conversation. Who are the translators of your world? Again, I wish you could have a look. I want you to shout out for me actually. I want you to share some with me. Because I'm always looking for new ones. Share some with me. Who are some of the translators of your world? Shout them out. Anyone willing to share?
My wife.
Your wife?
Yeah, my wife.
So what does she translate for you?
Everything.
Everything. Christmas, birthdays. Yep. I am one of those.
Gabor Mate.
Gabor Mate.
He's an expert.
Yes, he is. What does he translate for you?
Everything. Trauma, looks like childhood upbringing.
Yeah.
He actually takes scientific knowledge and brings it to the layperson in a language you can understand.
In a language you can understand. And what do you love about how he does that?
Well, he's authentic, isn't he?
He shows up fully as himself.
And he's credible because he has got expert knowledge.
Yeah.
He has got qualifications, he's been in specialism in the field.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
But usually we wouldn't have access to people that have that kind of knowledge, right? And if we did, we'd have to read Room's books, but he brings it to you using your language and simplifies it. 100%. One more.
Dalai Lama.
Dalai Lama.
Yeah.
And what does he translate? Wisdom. Yeah. Peace. Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And what do you love about how he does it actually?
So it's explaining it and just penetrating into when he says stuff. You can relate to something.
Yeah. He has a lot of humanity about him, I find. A huge amount of humanity. He shows up as a human being.
Sasha Jansen.
Who's that? I haven't heard of him.
Look him up on YouTube. Sasha Jansen.
Sasha Jansen.
Yes.
And what does he translate for you?
Economics.
Ah, and what do you love about how he does it?
It's all data driven and interactive.
Yep.
That's what I love about it. And he does it in a very, engaging way.
Yeah. And are they short pieces, long pieces?
10, 15 minutes.
Short bites.
Yeah.
Again, we go back to that human language, short bite-sized chunks. See, the translators are the people that we follow. They are the people that we buy from. They are the people that we trust. We are not in an information age anymore. We are in a translation age. The translators have all of the influence, all of the power. What I'd love you to do is go back to the office and have this conversation with your team or with your field. Who are the translators in that space? What do they do well? How do they do it? Get forensic about it. How do they do it? Is it raw and real? Is it data-driven? Is it short? Is it long? Is it video? Is it behind the scenes? Is it well-produced? How do they do it? And I have an entire workshop on how you can show up as the translator, but one of the things that I know that you will notice is that translators think in questions. They think in questions. They keep what we call a relentless question radar. They collect the questions of their target market and they show up consistently and answer them. So how can you start collecting questions from your field? How can you start sharing world-class answers? How can you show up more frequently to answer the questions of your target market? One of the things I sometimes dare people to do, or challenge people to do, is what I call the 30-day challenge. And the 30-day challenge is you answer a question a day for 30 days. Usually on social media, depending on your industry, it could be LinkedIn, could be Instagram, could be Facebook. Question day for 30 days. A lot can change in 30 days. And I have seen some incredible things change in 30 days, because guess what? If you start answering questions that I have, not only have you got my attention, not only are you now a translator in my world, but what else will I do? I'll share you. Because if I have those questions and someone just like me that I know undoubtedly has those questions, and I just start sharing you with everybody that I know. And this is how we shift from out interrupting to out contributing. And we start showing up as the translator in our space. Next on our list is captivation. Captivation. If the eyes and the ears of your target market belong to the translators, and they do, then the heart of your target market belongs to the storytellers. The epic, epic storytellers. Those are the ones that keep our attention. So why is that? Other than the fact that I promise you that everything that caught your attention today, everything you engaged with on your phone, was undoubtedly a story. But why is that? It's because we're hardwired for story, right? We're hardwired for it. Story is how we trust, story is how we engage, story is how we connect. In peace negotiations, they will often bring two parties together to share their stories, sometimes not even in the same language. Because something happens, right, when we share our stories with each other. Something that's kind of hard to find words for, something that's more physiological and psychological. We drop into space with each other. Now, epic storytelling is one of those things that is the key to getting people to take action. Now, I cannot feel empathy for you until I know what it's like to walk a mile in your shoes, until you share your story with me. And empathy is the only road to emotion. Emotion is the only road to action. We don't take action unless propelled by emotion, vast majority of the time. So storytelling is the key to emotion, and emotion is the key to action, getting people to take action. So if you want to stand out, if you want to get people to take action, so if you've got people's attention, now you want to convert it into actual results, you have to learn the art of epic storytelling. So what makes an epic story? So over 20 years of doing this work with organisations and thought leaders across thousands of stages, millions of people, there are three things that I believe that an epic story has in common. First of those is it personal? Is it personal? Now, don't get me wrong. When I say is it personal, I don't mean is it like the nasty kind of personal. You know, I'm not saying you have to cross any boundaries, you have to share all your emotions, everything that's on your mind, everything that you're thinking, your family, with the world. That's not what I'm talking about. What I'm talking about with the word personal is something very simple. Do I believe you? Do I believe you? Have you walked this road before, or have you held the hand of somebody else that has walked this road? Do I believe you? Do I trust that you know my journey? Does this mean something to you? Have you been there? That is a personal story. Second one of those is relevant. Now this one gets missed all the time. Is it relevant? Is it relevant to the people that you are trying to attract? We have one rule in my office when it comes to marketing and content, and we call it the keep it or share it rule. Keep it or share it. Is what we are about to send out, is what we are about to post valuable enough for someone to A, keep it, refer back to it again later, or B, share it with somebody else that they know. Keep it or share it. That's relevance. And the third one is a motive. Third key to epic storytelling is it a motive? And again, I want to be really clear. When I say emotion, I'm not talking about what you see on the front cover of newspapers. You know, I would call that cheap influence. That is influence that is driven by fear, drama, and outrage. It's not what I'm talking about. When I'm talking about a motive, I just mean, is it human? Are you speaking like a real human being? Are you using real human language? The kind of language that I would use to talk about what you do when you're not in the room. We call that charismatic language. In every target market, every impact zone has what we would call charismatic language. Language that is completely specific to them. Human language. So are you using charismatic language, or are you hiding behind jargon and stats and quotes and all the things that we hide behind when we're feeling just a little bit scared? So those are the keys to epic storytelling. Now, what's going to stop you? What's going to stop you going out there as this room and becoming the most powerful group of epic storytellers the world has ever seen? One word. Raise your hands for me, the perfection addicts. Anyone here got a perfection addiction? You can tell because they're trying to find the perfect way to put their hand up. They're still not be seen. I'm going to join you. I'll join you. Yeah. addiction often. And we know what it looks like, obviously when somebody else does it though. We know what it looks like. It usually looks like this. I will show up, be seen, stand up, tell my stories when the lighting is perfect. I have the perfect budget. It's the perfect time. I am perfect. The words are perfect. It's the perfect moment. The perfect economy. The perfect platform. The perfect number of followers. Now, I can tell you that that day never comes. It never comes. And if that is your story, if that's the barrier that you have right now, I want you to do me a favour. I want you to just pop it in the corner of the room. Just take it, pop it in the corner of the room. You can pick it up again when you leave. But just for the next few minutes, just leave it over there because I want to show you something. And this is something that completely changed how I view and approach storytelling in my business and in my life. I just want to share this with you. Who here would want to do business with her? Yeah. Who here would trust her? And that video first came to me at the bottom of an email signature. Someone forwarded it to me. She's an insurance agent in the States, and at the bottom of her email signature it just said, "The worst and the best day of my career." The worst and the best day of my career. Now, that video is not perfect, right? No, there's no production there, there's no lighting. She's like, you know, it's not got all the bells and whistles and the perfect words and the perfect script and all of those things. Yet it is utterly compelling. Can you imagine if you or your field agents, when they sent someone an email, there was a link to a video at the bottom that talked a little bit about who they are and why they do what they do, and where they found it and how they found it, and what difference it's made to their lives. The job would be done before they even got to the front door. So how can you start showing up as a brand and help your influencers start showing up as epic storytellers? So this is the last time, I promise you. I'm going to give you 1 minute. I want you to talk to the person next to you. How can you start telling more epic stories? Behind the scenes stories, success stories, challenge stories, best day, worst day stories. We call these grippingly human stories. Stories that are grippingly human. Okay, music up, I'll give you 1 minute. Where can you start telling more epic stories? This is another conversation. This is another conversation that I want you to take back to the office, that I want you to take back to the field. How can we start telling more grippingly human stories? Because I promise you, we don't want your perfection. We're a bit off-put by perfection, aren't we? It's a bit scary. And there's a reason that we love reality TV. It's a reason we are now watching a reality TV show of other people watching a reality TV show. We don't want your perfection. We want grippingly human stories. Now, if that didn't change your mind, maybe this will. I have a podcast that's called Inside Influence, and I interview experts in influence and in standing out as an influencer in your space from all over the world. And on this one particular day, I interviewed somebody called Ben Jones. Now, Ben Jones runs a team within Google called Unskippable Labs. Now, if you haven't come across Ben's work, if you haven't come across Unskippable Labs, please check them out. Please check them out. Basically, what they do is they run these amazing experiments, and their entire focus is figuring out what makes us press skip or not press skip. You know when you're watching a YouTube video, first 5 seconds an ad comes on and you can either skip it after 5 seconds or watch the whole thing, right? Their entire focus, 5 billion hours, by the way, a video goes up on YouTube every single day, and they study all of it to figure out what makes us press skip. And what they found fascinated me. So I was saying to him, you've got all this data, like what do you know about epic storytelling? What's the number one thing you can tell me about epic storytelling? And he said, I'm going to tell you a story. Which was a very apt thing for him to say. So I'll tell you a story. L'Oreal. He said L'Oreal came to us a few years ago, and L'Oreal were losing traction. Kylie Jenner was killing L'Oreal. You know, they just were not getting the traction that they used to get. They were doing all these perfect ads, they were doing everything they'd never done, and their market share was diminishing steadily, year on year. What had worked was just not working anymore, which was outspend, outshout, and out too much. And so they went to Ben Jones and his team, and they were like, can you just tell us what are we doing wrong here? And he said, no problem, we'll run an experiment, we'll figure it out. And so they ran this experiment. So they did 3 ads, 3 stories. The first they called The Glam. Now the glam was a famous celebrity, it was beautifully produced, it had all the great lighting, makeup, perfect script, looked amazing. Second one they did was the show. Now the show was a lesser known celebrity, you know, not an A-lister, still decent production, but not as great. And the third one that they made, they called The Tell. And The Tell was literally a work experience student that they put in the stationery cupboard with some of the makeup and an iPhone and said, just film yourself. And so she did. She just filmed it. Oh, this is me opening it. Oh my goodness, it smells amazing. I'm like, you know, the texture is incredible, and look at that colour. You know, all the things that we do when we're on our own in a stationery cupboard with an iPhone and some makeup. So, which do you think got the most traction? By far. Especially for younger generations. Now, who here wants more younger generations in your film? Yeah. Especially for younger generations. The best recall by far, The Tell. So what does that tell us? It tells us that if you want to get cut through, if you want people to stop skipping what you do, stop deleting what you do, stop ignoring what you do, then you need to learn the art of really human storytelling. You need to let perfection go and just show up and start trying things. That's the key to standing out in a new age of influence. And before I leave you today, there's one last thing that I wanted to talk to you about. And this thing is very, very close to my heart. And it's this one word, certainty. Certainty. Now you will notice in our time together today that there's another word that I have not said at all. I haven't mentioned it once, quite deliberately. One little word. And this one little word is responsible for keeping more brilliant people, organisations, teams, and ideas on the sidelines than any other. And that word is confidence. Confidence. Now usually when I hear it, and I hear it a lot, usually when I hear it, it sounds something like this. I will stand up, be seen, use my voice, do a video, say yes, say no, put my hand up for that opportunity, show up, step up, get out there more, make an impact when I feel more confident. When I feel more confident. Now here's the thing with confidence. It doesn't happen at the beginning. It happens at the end, right? Confidence shows up when we show up, over and over and over again. It is not the ingredient, it's the result. It is the result of constantly showing up. You don't get confident before you do the thing. You have to jump first. Now, we're over lockdown. My husband and I, we bought for my daughter, I've got a 7-year-old daughter, we bought her, you know, monkey rings, like the monkey bars? We bought some monkey rings for her and put them up in the back garden. And I was just watching her from the kitchen, I was doing the washing up, and she would get up on the monkey rings, and then she would fall down and smash her face on the floor. You shouldn't laugh at that, I'm sorry. It was painful to watch at the time. She'd get up and she would smash, and then she would get up and then she would smash, and then she would get up for hours. This cycle continued. And after about a couple of hours, I opened the window, I was like, hey hon, how you feeling? You feel any more confident yet? And she was like, nah. And up she goes again. Something happens, and I wish I knew when. I wish I knew when it happens. If I knew when it happened, I would go right there. But something happens when we grow up, but we start believing that confidence is supposed to show up before we show up. And it doesn't, ever. I've worked with some of the most powerful people on the planet, and I can promise you, not one of them waited for confidence to show up. What I would rather you have, and what you can have right now, what you can claim right now, is a mindset of certainty. A mindset of certainty. The most powerful force on earth. And this is what certainty looks like. It looks like, today, I'm going to give you the best that I have got. The best that I have. I'm going to give it to you as generously and as openly as I possibly can. And tomorrow, if I find out something new, if I get new information, I'm going to change my mind. I'm going to adapt. I'm going to pivot. Because I can do that. But today, I'm going to give you the best that I have got. That's certainty. Confidence is an upward sensation, it's adrenaline, it's up here. Certainty is a downward sensation. It's owning the ground that you walk on. It's owning your space. I don't want confidence for you. I want gravity for you. I want you to attract the next level of opportunity. I want you to attract the right people, the right ideas to take you guys to the next level. That's influence. Now, my mum, she worked as a direct seller for the majority of my childhood. And that's what this industry gave to her. And the lives of my family and my life were forever altered by everything that she learned from people like you in this room. And so I am very grateful for everything that you do. And I can promise you that influence, it doesn't live out there. It doesn't live in the algorithms, not in emails, not in social media. Those are just the places where our stories get amplified. It starts here, it lives here, in this room, with you, and it is an inside job. Thank you so much.